The Federal and Velevin Hypermarket jointly present the Thoothukudi Marathon 2024 to raise awareness on drug abuse. The event is co-presented by Edison Cardio Care Center, Tiruchendur, powered by L. Anand Jewelry and St. Mother Teresa Engineering College, Thoothukudi.
Welcome to another episode of The Federal's Worldly Wise, a weekly international affairs program that attempts to decode the latest developments. We are today talking about the St. Martin's Island. We can't at the moment say for sure whether the former Bangladesh government under Sheikh Hasina fell over the issue of St. Martin's Island, a tiny island in the southernmost tip of that country. Hasina has been quoted by reports as saying that the United States wanted to set up a military base or an outpost in return for her continuance in office. Hasina did not comply, and a couple of weeks ago, she was deposed from office following a sudden uprising over a completely unconnected issue. The US has repeatedly denied it was interested in the island. It said so even a couple of days ago when the latest reports on this issue came up. We'll get to know the truth of these claims and counterclaims several decades later when classified information in the US archives gets declassified, if not earlier. But a look at St. Martin's Island, its location in the Indian Ocean, makes it an ideal spot for a big power to want it. Its size is just around 3 square kilometers. What makes it attractive is its proximity to Bangladesh and Myanmar. In fact, it is just around 9 kilometers to the southernmost tip of Bangladesh, south of Cox's Bazar, and around 8 kilometers to the west of Myanmar. It's tantalizingly close to both countries, and there was a dispute over who should own it. Over 50 years ago, the two countries fortunately agreed that it was part of Bangladesh. So the dispute almost ended there. Apparently, in the past, it was land linked to Bangladesh's Teknaf Peninsula. A portion of the peninsula was submerged into the ocean, leaving another portion behind as an island. It was called Narikal Jinjira in the local lingo. And there are around 7,000 inhabitants in it, living off fishing and farm-related activities. And much of the products apparently are sent to Myanmar. What makes the reports about the US desiring the island believable is its location. For the US, which is constantly on the lookout to sustain its political and military supremacy, the island is a veritable laddoo waiting to be swallowed. If the US does indeed take over the island, it will be strategically positioned to literally keep a close watch over Myanmar, Bangladesh, and more crucially, China and India, which are not very far either. But the repercussions of such a possibility is that it will completely change the strategic complexion of the Indian Ocean region. Which brings us to the gradual changes in the Indian Ocean over the last few decades. Not so long ago, say until the late 1980s or say early 1990s, it was a peaceful region. India was in strategic control of the region, and all seemed stable and quiet until China gradually started growing powerful and began flexing its muscles in the region. Beijing's first major foray was in tying up with Sri Lanka. It helped the federal government in Colombo to defeat the Tamil separatists. In the process, it dug itself into Sri Lanka. India, which had traditionally dominated Lankan politics, was edged out as it refused to intervene in the island nation's power struggles. And one reason for that was the LTTE's involvement in the assassination of former Prime Minister Rajiv Gandhi. So whatever it might be, India's absence was taken advantage of by China. China soon managed to take control of the Hambantota Island port. So its first major foray into the Indian Ocean region much to India's discomfiture. The US too was concerned at the development. Simultaneously, Beijing worked its way within Bangladesh, turning it into Dhaka's largest trading partner. China did not stop there. It maneuvered itself into a competing power in Maldives, another key Indian archipelago state where it has constantly tried to edge out India. Beijing has succeeded to a considerable extent. These developments have changed the Indian Ocean to the disadvantage of India. But the issue goes deeper. The US, arguably the world's superpower, is worried over the growth of China as a competing power, and it sees the entry and consolidation of China in the Indian Ocean as a strategic danger to its interests. To counter China, the US has worked out a close relationship with India. For the government in New Delhi, it is a comfortable arrangement. As for the last few years, it has been feeling the heat from Beijing's arrival in its neighborhood and tensions along the disputed border in the Himalayas. Yet, New Delhi is not totally convinced whether the US should directly enter the Indian Ocean. It will immediately increase the stakes in the region. Not just that, the Indian Ocean will turn into a theater of rivalry between China and the US. And there is no saying how it will impact India's security. Some time ago, that was in April 2021, US warships, part of the famous 7th Fleet, in what they call freedom of navigation exercise, arrived near the Lakshadweep Islands without bothering to inform India, which is the norm, especially between so-called friendly nations. The US, however, defended its movement in India's exclusive economic zone near the Lakshadweep Islands and asserted its right to fly, operate, or sail wherever international laws allow. Indian Navy had chased away similar attempts by the Chinese to sail in India's exclusive economic zone, but could not do anything except express concern when the US did the same. What this shows is that though the US and India are friends, they are not necessarily equal partners. If the US does get hold of St. Martin's Island, leave aside China, even India will not be happy. Now that Mohammad Yunus has taken over as the chief advisor in an army-backed interim government in Bangladesh, the situation can change. The earlier Sheikh Hasina government refused to part with St. Martin's Island and possibly paid a heavy price. But Yunus, who was in the US in exile during Hasina's government and considered close to Washington, is now in power. Nothing may happen in the immediate future. The situation is still fluid in Bangladesh. It won't be easy for a future dispensation in Dhaka to take a pro-US decision. China is still a big power or a big player within Bangladesh, and so is India. If there is any concrete move, either by the interim army-backed regime or a future full-fledged government to favor the US and hand over St. Martin's Island, irony of ironies, China and India will find themselves on the same side against Washington, and the Indian Ocean region will never be the same again.
The Federal and Valevan Hypermarket jointly present the Thoothukudi Marathon 2024 to raise awareness on drug abuse. The event is co-presented by Edison Cardio Care Center, Tiruchendur, powered by L. Anand Jewelry and Saint Mother Teresa Engineering College, Thoothukudi.